ones specifically that were coming to the end of the bidding phase, then if you already had a plan deployed for that, like if you're just watching Gwei, like which a lot of us will do, right? Just sit there and watch the gas meter, right? At those times previous to bidding anyway, right? To like go do something where you know that there may be a potential where you're going to be doing like maybe 20 different transactions that night, waiting for the box to come up that tells you how expensive it's going to be able to make that transaction, then go looking at what Gwei costs are, is probably not like, it would just probably suggest that you're not used to going in and making that many transactions in one night in the first place. Right. So it'd be good to have like those things available to you ready to go as tools previous to getting involved with an auction house. So you know what environment that you're going to be set up in. So that way you can deploy your risks and be able to mitigate your risks and the way that you manage your money at that time when the environment is what it is. But I think that in the end result of an expensive gas environment, that we must not forget that even though 2,600 on the first day are going to become available to default, does not mean that their 24-hour counters start. So if gas prices are expensive, then it's probably just going to mean that less of them are actually started on their 24-hour countdown. And then the next day, it'll just kind of like start this wave of them piling up on each other that'll just cause for these things to maybe have a little bit more less of a chaotic moment for everybody and more of a structured like moment of how people are more calculated with the decisions in which they make, which will just make everything seem more structured, even though it's really not, right?
Yeah. So my other question will be like, because we know Poly has 40 Ethereum gas fee, something like this. 40 or 45, I don't remember. Anyway, so they have a lot of Ethereum to pay the gas. So let's say I'm the person who built the Poly. For me, it would be better to liquidate all the 2,600, or let's say the medium and big exercise, all in the same time to have. So because I have so many gas fees I can have, so I can bid many times. But the medium, small, because I have so many gas fees, they're gonna run out of gas. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, over a period of time. Yeah.
Yeah, so they can bid like 10, 15, 20 times, let's say, just for one exercise because there are so many Ethereum.
Right.
But
Well,
so
I think
I think the strategy they may be gonna, uh, how do you say in English? They may be gonna try to waste the gas fee, the Ethereum gas fee from the medium, small, and maybe even the big player. And when they run off gas, they still gonna have a lot of Ethereum to pay
I
the
wonder
gas and to win the exercise.
I wonder if some people don't get frustrated because they understand what you just said, right? After a while. Or maybe not even like it doesn't take them very long to get frustrated. And instead of like trying to minimalize their amount of hedron that they're actually getting, that they just already understand what their maximum is till they quit. So they can minimalize their amounts of bids that they have to spend gas fees on. And then they
Yeah,
just go for it.
and
Yeah.
less hydron burn.
Well, no, not necessarily, because what they're doing is they're going for it. They're YOLOing it on this one, right? So they can move to the next one and then maybe try to compete. But when they find out how much competition's there, they're going to YOLO in on that one too. But it doesn't mean that
Okay,
they
yeah.
won't bid on the next one because other people may have more availability before they decide that they're going to YOLO at maybe what may be a different higher percentage than what those other people figured were going to be their margin, right? Everyone is going to have a different margin. Like we're not gathering together figuring out what those numbers are, because it will be different for everybody. Therefore, almost every single percentage of margin will actually be covered if there's enough of us actually involved in participating. That's the cool thing about it, right? So just having that understanding is kind of one of the main reasons why I was harping on just general participation will generate a success rate for a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, I wonder if the SA or the OA is gonna play. I'm not sure of that. Did you read what I wrote yesterday about the SA? If they play and if they play the auction and then they sell everything in the Icosa contract buyback and they keep Icosa liquid and keep some in to provide liquidity, so they have less slippage between Hex and Icosa pair
Oh yeah,
over time.
just don't allow any of it to become staked, but use it for what a benefit.
Yeah,
Yes,
so
would
let's
do.
say the OA is with the like Hex, the OA have a lot of Hex liquid, kind of controlling the let's say to control the market. So the OA can control Idron and the SA can control the market, or maybe the FA, the flow address. They can control Icosa, so they have a lot. They Because now I think SA or FA doesn't have any Icosa, so
Mhm.
does it really matter or not? Just to keep control of the liquid, the supply.
Well, I mean, I'm pretty sure that the essay has Watts's. So, and and I think that they are involved in the staking already on other wallets. Um,
Okay, I didn't know that.
so I mean, as far as it getting involved in the auctions itself, like I don't have any proof that would validate that that is a potential, because it's never happened as far as I know, right? Like until it happens, it just probably deserves to, substantiate itself in the realm of speculation, right? But I mean, I don't know. I could ask, but yeah, you're right in that understanding is that the essay is going to participate in certain parts and certain things so it can maintain its benevolent, you know, purpose for sure. Now,
Yeah, it will be really happen. Next few weeks, maybe next 1 year or so.
are you partying, Solix? Is that what you're doing?
I'm just grabbing a coffee.
Now, remember, it's morning time for you, but for me, it's midnight. So in my head, I envision like dark room, lights and lasers all over the place, girls dancing on tables.
Yeah, but yeah, Eastern Europe is 24 hours.
Hmm. You're just trying to enjoy your coffee, and I'm talking about bad gym room smells. Yeah, I think that maybe the potential smart thing might be to do in like an all around type of personality way is to be more of the tortoise wins the race mentality, I guess, is to really pay attention to what's going on and give yourself time, even though it looks so chaotic potentially, like you may be losing an advantage as time just goes by every day, right? Every 24 hours. but knowing how many HSIs are coming funneling in is gonna probably like demand a better understanding of how much competition is there to begin with, right? As a whole, kind of like what you were saying before, Celix. Like it all depends on how many people are there participating together. That's gonna cause for the environment to be too expensive to use for some people, and or the not at all, just cause more competition to happen altogether. It will be interesting to sit there and watch on the websites that you can watch the behavior of the blockchain and see how it responds to us having an event, which usually events don't happen, not like this, I guess. But understanding when you utilize the blockchain, at least, that it causes for it to get more expensive, it, at least the event that we're doing on the technical side of filling up the blockchain with transactions, it's very minimal data that it needs to have. So we could put like a lot of bids and stuff into one block without it actually causing for our gas fees to get too crazy for what we're actually doing, right? So if it was just us on the blockchain and everything else was all died down and nothing was really, no other events were happening on the blockchain, then I find it difficult for us, just ourselves, to cause for some giant leap of gas costs in the functions that we're doing. So we'll have to see and monitor the GUI costs of the network based off of any other events, erroneous events that we may probably not paying attention to. You may be. I don't want to make you feel like you're not included by saying that you're going to be involved with some other event, but this is a pretty big one here, right?
Yeah,
But
I wonder, like, okay, let's say there is the next bull market, or maybe a second bull market, but I mean, in the future, like 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, maybe the ecosystem, I'm sure the ecosystem gonna grow, but don't you think we can have a kind of same event like this, but with less? Of course, we're gonna have uh, less Icosa yield because of the share rate increase. But I mean, still, let's say with other players, maybe Poly gonna create another pool, maybe another founder gonna create something. So maybe over time, we're gonna have like 5, 6, 7 big player,
maybe
So let's say Poly 1, Poly 2, another founder, maybe Alex gonna create something, and so they're gonna competition each other.
that'd be fine with me, because between the competitions, the ones who would
Oh yeah,
win
yeah,
between
of course.
these guys competing
Yeah,
like this are like those of us that are acting as individuals and participating in a way where we hold our own availability of moving our stuff around. I mean, just being in DeFi itself gives us all these options, which is fucking awesome. And Hedron gets locked up for a long fucking time, and otherwise it gets burned. So those who hold Hedron itself, it sounds like they're winning,
yeah, yeah, for sure.
especially with auctions that can happen in the future, of course, right? So
And with the deflationary of Iran supply over time, so I mean that's a no-brainer.
say that again.
With the Iran deflationary supply over time, I don't know how much percentage gonna be deflationary. Maybe I don't know. Over time, maybe 1%, 2% per year, maybe less. But still,
Its inflation rate is insane, though, isn't it?
no. But I mean deflationary. I mean, yeah, of course it's inflation, but with the burning mechanism, it's gonna be maybe decrease the supply. No.
I mean, it will temporarily, and I think that it'll cause what we need to have happen is those who haven't minted their large bags yet, which I think that there was a two sharks or something like that that hadn't, and I think one of them just blew up, nuked their whole everything, and got out and didn't even mint any of their hedron at all recently. So, and maybe it's just one shark left that hasn't dumped. All the dolphins did. None of the whales did. Well, I think maybe one whale did. One whale might have. And so that means that generally anyone, if there's only one shark left, that means anyone who had a bunch of wallets that would have calculated them as being a shark, like a bunch of dolphins or whatever, or a couple of shark wallets that made them a whale or some shit, then they're pretty well done. They're cooked, right? So we don't have very many more. Obviously, just the one shark, and then a fuck ton of turtles and squids that haven't minted off of their original native stakes that they'd made. So that needs to happen to get the full understanding of what the inflation of hedron would actually be after the inception of day one hex, to get that understanding. And then anyone who makes another hex stake that actually remembers to mint their hedron has the capability of continuing that inflation further throughout time, right? But the only currency that's accepted in these auctions when these events happen in the first place is hedron. So it's interesting to see like what this current event has done here with the token dynamics for hedron, and it'll be interesting to see like what does happen in the future to incentivize those other types of functions that are available there, right? And who does it incentivize when it operates in the way that it does, right? So we shall see. All these things are made, it seems, to be built on top of in one way or the other. We'll just see which way that decides to play out. Like in my opinion, like the poly thing, it already exists. It's already there, right? Like I know that some people probably feel a certain way about it, but now it's probably the time to just get over that shit, right? I mean, I hate to say it, but in reality, that's just the way that it is. Like it's there, it's a competitor. Like as my response to Dipcatcher and Gold Key when they keep accusing me of being the executor is that they say competitor funny, right? Because that's what I am. Like it doesn't even make sense because I don't have any maxi. I'm not a part of their community in any way, but I am a part of this community and I teach people how all this stuff happens. And my point of view of the whole thing was not very I didn't like it. I didn't like how it was presenting itself to be able to tactfully take away from the longevity of a protocol that just came out. I didn't like it at all. But now it's just too late, right? It's already there. It's a thing. So I have to take it for whatever its positives are and then realize that our community is not just a bunch of hexicans or hadronians or icosians or whatever you'd want to call them, but it's a little salt and pepper of everybody. And I haven't had any indirect like hate mail or something like that for anything I've said. So I think we're doing pretty good here. Watching Dipcatcher and Gold Key come in and do their side shelling is entertaining to watch how the community responds to them, to say the least. But I think that overall that they mean well. So at least there's that. I think the proof will be in the pudding. We'll have to see how it operates, right? If from the conversation I saw today, like that executor could be around for quite a while and make just one bid after 28 days, and then it gets another 30 days, to sit there and wait. So if there's another 90-day cycle that happens after this one where a bunch of buybacks get used, then it can put itself in a position, since there's always going to be new HSIs coming in, for it to hang around until the next cycle and then whop them all at that time if they wanted to.
Yeah, I think overall it's because we spoke about this like since Idron. I mean, since let's say since Icosa, they launch, and we have a lot of strategy and how you spoke a lot of about the ecosystem, how it's work and everything. So let's say most of the people here in the chat, um, they have a lot of knowledge about this. And when Polly came and they just say, "Oh, we're gonna do that, that, that," and we are like, "But why?" Like everything was fine, like. But anyway, that's okay. I think, and it's not gonna be the first creation like this. I think there are gonna be more orders, and yeah, and maybe personally, because I know what's gonna happen for the next project. So yeah, anyway, I'm not gonna talk about this, but
Okay. What? Asshole.
No, but no, I'm kidding. No, but you know what I mean,
Expectations of what? Hold on, I didn't hear you. Come on, say that again.
Oh no, because I say I know what's gonna happen in the future for the next project. So that's why. Anyway.
I know, I heard you. That's not fair for you to say.
Yeah, anyway. So yeah, I think like I said, it's not the project, it's just the participant. If they want to participate, they can, but yeah,
Nice.
just to know what they are participating. And I'm not saying I'm not saying it's a bad or great project or doesn't matter, it's just like, do you really benefit in it? Or you can do it, or if you are doing by yourself, you can benefit even more. So yeah, anyway. So it
Right.
depends for everybody.
That is the most important question: is who does it incentivize?
Yeah. So yeah, so that was kind of my concern, like, because I don't really benefit, but anyway, it's just another, let's say, another community gonna benefit.
Right.
So I have to participate in this community to benefit. But as a Idronian or Icosa, yeah, and kind of indirectly, but not really directly.
Right. Like I had made this comment about, what's not to sound so vile, I guess, but why not have a protocol that comes in and then just has a strategy that you can deploy that's built to operate in our ecosystem, right? Like for us, we know about the strategies and what strategies you can deploy as an individual, and which way that you would want to go do that as. There, like your strategy could have been to go in to bid on HSIs, to hold them and ride them out till fruition, right? To not turn them back into the buyback function, to actually hold them, because maybe initially your initial thought was the reason why you're going to turn these back in is because you were going to go in and compete and get a couple of them back. But your initial reason of turning them in was to get liquid Icosa right away from the value that you had locked up in those HSIs, so you can get started in the staking protocols, in like front running the rest of the crowd when they found out about all these auctions, right? So you can start earning yield and be locked in at a lower share rate. And then when the auctions and the events actually happened, you had enough time to have this loaded up and then start earning even more yield when these auctions occur. And then I don't know, you had 90 fucking days, 3 months to build up more hedron or whatever it is that you wanted to use to be able to get and compete, whether that be ETH or not. Um, what they were able to do in 6 days was the power of what all of you guys had to do under your own volition, if that was your strategy, right? So that's the way that I see it, is those that already deployed and had that understanding for what their strategy was going to be, that they knew that there was two options pretty much, right? The strategy of get as many HSIs as you can and use them right back into the buyback function again, so you can increase your availability in this protocol of people who are probably going to do it anyway. And that's smart. That is smart. That's a smart tactic to do, because in my opinion, that over time, what you need to try to do if you're not a whale is participate in a way that you're trying to outpace those whales so that you can increase your position within the first 365 days. And then realize that those whales have a potential availability of their own options to compound their yield. And then you, at that point, if this is your strategy to try to compete and stay a high yielding individual, is then you're trying to outpace them again for another 360 days. Because those who become whales now are going to have the type of yield that they can just compound and not have to really actually, for the most part, compete to outpace anybody else. They can just participate in different levels, not so high of levels, to be able to maintain their position. And then after doing this competition for 2 or 3 years, maybe, I would say that your availability of having to participate in those higher ranks of the whales and the sharks and the dolphins is less and less and less, due to the fact of you getting diluted is going to be so hard for anybody to do, because you were already involved in the highest inflationary periods of the token in the first place. Regardless of whether there may be other events, the share rate is lower today and does quantify as like something that you need to take into consideration for all of this stuff, especially using the buyback function, right? Between day 1 of the auctions being available and day 90 of the auctions still occurring later down the road, how much is the share rate going to move, right? Will it change your availability of tactic on how much you're willing to spend on HSIs when the share rate does go up, right? Watching how much more hex you can get for Icosa when the share rate goes up, is that going to incentivize you to get involved in the staking protocol to try to be able to get higher yields so you can get back into hex in a bigger way? It's really up to you on how you want to try to deploy these things, but having something come as an addition onto it, when we, like you said, when we understand everything, how to use it as an individual, I think that it's okay for you to feel the way that you do about it, because you see it as not incentivizing you, which it's not. So I don't blame any of you guys for feeling the way that you had about this whole entire thing, and maybe responding some of the ways that you did about it. And even me too, right? I feel justified in the way that I feel about it. I'm not going to apologize for a damn thing. But hopefully, in my hopes, is since they are involved now in the actual community of the staking, of Icosa staking, whether it be Hedron staking pool or not, it's still the Icosa staking protocols, then maybe their mindset would turn to a way to be able to build something that would incentivize those who have the highest amounts of yield for it, right? Now, the one thing that always makes me fall to my knees a little bit on the thought process about all of it is, who is it incentivizing? Well, it's incentivizing a different community of people in a previous pool that was already established a time ago. It's not newly established with this new add-on. It was pre-established to be like a pyramid thing that gives this other pool a percentage of all the other pools of all the derivatives in which they've created from the original underlying source, which was hex. So I don't really like that. Like, to
Why do you think I spoke like 2 3 days ago, like really bad.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
But
mean,
it's already too
yeah,
late.
anyway.
We
Yeah,
have
yeah, but anyway,
opportunity.
I just
Yeah.
stop about this. Yeah, I'm like you, you know. Like, I mean, I'm thinking like you, and I'm just saying, okay, now it's done. I'm just gonna shut up and just
Yeah, pretty much. I'm sorry. It sucks, but I will validate your feelings, guys. Like for those of you that do feel that way, like I think that it's absolutely understandable that you feel the way that you do about it, for sure. You know, fuck Polly and all that stuff. I mean, it might as well just become a meme, like a thing between us, because they're here, and you know, certain people feel the way they do. Like I had a discussion with Blue Bum, and I like Blue Bum. I mean, he's a very nice guy. He's very knowledgeable. He knows a lot about what he's talking about. Um, but he accreditates like almost everything as positive, almost every damn thing. And he would argue with me about that too, because I think he's a lawyer or some shit. He likes to argue. But I think
yeah,
that he's the guy
yeah.
that you send
I
across
think
the.
it's
Go ahead. Anyway, like his feelings on the whole thing was very very accepting. It almost seemed like he was promoting it in a certain way. But when I was speaking to him, like look, like you have hexagons that became hexagons hedronians and then got involved in Icosa. Now they're involved in this big community of 3 different assets already. And then you have people who came in that inadvertently, they don't know that they're hexagons. They just see this protocol that's came around, they're asking questions. And some of them through the last 90 days or less have found out what hex is and what the hedron is and like how it operates and how complicated that it is. Like they seem to pick up pretty well. And then even though it's attached to hex, they don't really seem to give a shit about that. Most people are all like, oh, hex, it's a scam. Da, da, da. They don't care. They don't give a shit about the scam stuff or anything. Like they see what has been built onto hex and they're interested in it. And so then you have those types of community members too. So their availability of learning the education when it was fresh, right, allowed for them to learn the complicated stuff first and then go backwards into what most people would say is complicated, but it's rather easy for them to learn. And so as an individual, it's very powerful for them to get this education on these things that have happened newly to them. And then when they see like, oh, well, you know, for people who aren't going to be able to get this stuff into them, they're like, what do you mean aren't going to be able to get this stuff? uh, Here's another tactic that you can deploy where you don't have to do anything. We'll do everything for you. You can add a third layer middleman. While they just watched all these Richard Hart videos, it was like middlemen and like third party attack vectors and da da da, like bad. This is not what we're all about and all these things. It's like, God. So then you have to go explain like why an executor would be needed and how blockchain works and using logic on these things and da 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 da. Like, and then now they get a whole nother educational lesson down this rabbit hole of stuff on how it actually really works. So thank God for our community for teaching people stuff, I guess, right? Um, but in the end result, that's not what anybody really gives a shit about any of that stuff. What people really give a shit about is if there's an add-on for to a community of people who already understand very well how to utilize the protocols, then how is it incentivizing them? And when they don't see anything that's incentivizing them, then they're obviously going to feel a certain way. But then we get the understanding of seeing what happens when they launched and see like, okay, so they've got about 4 dolphins. No, is it 4 sharks? What is it, 100 billion is a what? 1
100
trillion.
billion for
100 trillion is a shark. 100 billion is now a dolphin position, right?
10 billion. Oh, you mean dolphin is not 10 billion? Like 11?
Yeah, you're right. Dolphin would be 10 billion. So a shark would be 100 billion. So they've got like four shark positions availability inside their coffers out of, I think the top 50 are all in capability of being able to control the market still. Well, I know that the top 50 are. You can even say the top 75 or even the top 100 all have enough to be able to capably like manage what's going on there anyway. But the thing with the executor, I think that it's being calculated in its understanding that every single type of tactic that we come up with, it will have the availability of deploying. So I have had this certain period of moment in time to not talk about tactic, right? Not explicit like actual tactic. Because if we were to fumble across something that was new, as much as we all like alpha, it would be distributed to the executor, which these events have not actually started yet. So we could technically give away any advantages that we did come across, which is suck. That's sucky.
What's the executor like the maximum bid? Is it like premium or under the selling price?
We
Like
don't
the
know.
percent? Okay. So they can overbid from over the selling price, or nobody knows.
We don't know. See, like, here's the thing, is the one thing that you do not know, first and foremost, that you would need to know is the quality of HSIs that it finds the most advantageous for its people, not us, right? But for its people.
Yeah.
And how much
There is,
value.
okay. I just want to say about this. Yesterday, or even on the chat, I listened. Like they say, "Oh, we are gonna be like just on the big HSI, maybe the medium." But what's a medium or small? Like for me, a medium HSI is maybe one T-share, two T-share. So what? I mean, they don't speak about T-share. They just say, "Oh, the big HSI and maybe the medium HSI." But how many T-share is it? They can be.
I can tell you what they mean, because I've actually looked at them to like see which ones, how big they are and how many are available to actually have. So like when they say big T-share stakes, they're talking about I think there's 4 of them that are around 12 to 1500 T-shares, which is about 13, 14, 15 million hex locked up for 5555. So, and what they were doing there was deploying a scare tactic to people to realize how much Icosa, that if somebody was to win that they could get, and they would sell it and they would dump the price. And to me and a couple of other bigger players,
We know it's not true.
it doesn't make sense. I've been teaching
No,
you guys about liquidity and thin liquidity, that it wouldn't even make sense for somebody to come and do that to themselves in the first place.
That's why I argue last 2 days, about this. But yeah, anyways, yeah, that's why it's frustrating. Like when we know about the mechanism and how it's working, even the liquidity, and saying some bad stuff or fake facts on Twitter and everything, it's like kind of frustrating.
Of course, yeah, of course it is. But I mean, the reality of it is like what they're saying. If somebody was so dumb to go spend that type of money and then just go dump it across a liquidity pair and lose all the money that they made potentially on the thing in the first place, like it putting you into a negative position would be like potentially actually possible. What if whoever it was just a complete Looney Tune, nitwit, got real lucky, had no idea what they were doing, and then gave themselves an advantage and then lost it 5 seconds later? Who knows? It could possibly happen. but chances are extremely thin that it doesn't even make sense to bring it up and to say anything about it in the very first place. So I had mentioned this maybe 3 weeks before actual deployment when I was talking to Dipcatcher. I was like, so if we were to talk about the actually something that would help the community, would be that generalized understanding that you guys would go after the big ones, so that way you wouldn't have the potential of one individual not necessarily selling across the liquidity, the non-liquidity pools, but having the availability of becoming this runaway giant, right? In the staking pools, and also selling, also, I guess, right? But the way that I see it is like almost all of the Icosa that's been minted, which there's like millions of it now, or less than 20 million maybe now at this point, but almost all of it is staked. So there's not really like a whole lot of reasons to think that people are on any other thought process other than they would like to have Icosa to be able to participate in the staking pools to get the yield. Previous to any of the actual auctions going in the first place will probably cause more people to want to get more involved. But in the general, from what I saw of minted Icosa into existence and then all of a sudden staked, so therefore burned and then not in existence anymore, was more of a participation thing to be involved in a staking protocol, in a DeFi protocol that you would be deemed safe, rather than just trying to take advantage of the yield that was going to happen because of an event. Nobody knew how much yield was going to be there, right? Nobody really kind of actually knows. It was just kind of overwhelming to understand it after there was front ends for people to actually see it, right? Because it wasn't available right away to us. Right, to have them, I mean, to see how many that there was a website that got all fucked up because there was just too much data that was getting thrown into the contract at the time. That's how much of a whirlwind the Icosa thing created in the first place. And then to watch and see that it was 2,600 on the first day and then like another 1,300 on the next day was just phenomenal. More than you would have ever expected. That to all of a sudden have something come from the outside and being like, oh, poor you guys have all these HSIs to you. Let us fix that. It doesn't present us with a problem that ever needed to really be fixed, right? For you to nitpick through the HSIs just because you can see them doesn't facilitate that there is any actual issue, but it does take a lot of hedron off the market. Potentially it's going to cause for maybe more to be burned because you can facilitate an understanding of seeing what your competition is. You just don't get the understanding of where they actually plan on competing, because they can't. That would be like the SA or the OA actually coming out and telling you what its plans were for the next 90 days. It just wouldn't. It would give away so much of an advantage. It would it would be illegal to do. So you don't know whether they are going to actually go for the big ones or not. And as a matter of fact, when I actually brought that up to them, their immediate response to me at the time, which is understandable, was that even the largest HSIs as individuals, even if they are 12 to 1,500 T-shares, isn't even 1% of the bigger pays better bonus, which is 150 million hex, right? It means it'd have to be at least 15 million hex to reach 1% of the bonus, which it doesn't quantify for them to be something that they would compete so heavily in. But now that they have $40,000 in gas and a couple of shark positions worth, yeah, I think there's some potential there for some competition to happen wherever they decide to deploy in. And I hope that it isn't that they decide to go in there and pick off all the small ones like they originally had said, that they wanted to help facilitate the fact that so many small ones were made that after 15 years of them made as 5555s, it was going to not be cost effective to the gas. And I was like, but that may not even be a problem in 15 years. How can you estimate and assume that that's an actual issue that anyone here actually has? And then the narrative got flipped over to this other narrative that the big ones now, right? Because at first it was they're going to come for the small ones. And I'm like, you're going to attack this community? They even came in here. Remember, they were talking to us. They were telling everybody about how they were going to come and be competitors and all this. And I had to remind them what room they were in. And it almost like their demeanor changed almost immediately. And so did their tactics. So then the next thing that comes out is, oh, watch out for the whales. Watch out for the big guys that have all this stuff. You guys should be scared on what they're going to do. And then what did they do? They facilitated the means to become exactly on which the monster in which they said could actually happen. Like before, it was speculative and nobody actually knew if it was going to happen. And then look what was created in the end result of that, right?
Yeah, but that's what I said. They don't even Golki yesterday he spoke about. He didn't really understand the Icosa and Hydron inflation and really the ecosystem. He said it by himself. So just this that's mean he doesn't really know all about the. I mean, yeah. So I mean, just like you said, the small HSI. They said even it's going to be the gas fee going to be high maybe in 15 years, or it's going to be too expensive. But who cares, like you can just buy the small HSI, recycle it, and then 90 days again, 90 days after, the same HSI gonna bid, and you can recycle it. So at the end, this HSI maybe in 15 years nobody gonna unstack it because of the gas fee, but it has been maybe recycled maybe 10, 15 times. So everybody won, instead of waiting 15 years, somebody maybe took his profit maybe 1 year or 2 years after and take his Icosa.
Do you know what his argument becomes after we've established that the short-term stakes, leave those alone because that's where the most community wants to be and have those anyway because they can actually use them for something. And the bigger ones that they can't even compete with anyway, that's almost to them. They're like, who gives a fuck, right? Go compete with them. We don't give a shit. And if you're going to hold on to them anyway, and it doesn't cause more actual inflation to that individual, then it sounds beneficial to me as a smaller guy. So yeah, that would be cool if they did do that. And if that is the case, then maybe their outlook at the end result of everything would be a lot more positive for more community members if that was the case, if they even understood that in the first result. But let's say you defeat the small HSI narrative, and then now you have the big narrative in which they want to scare people on, which is you and I said before, it doesn't even facilitate the narrative to even actually be capable of playing out in the first place because the liquidity doesn't even suggest that you can. The next narrative is that they got involved because the essay with the Wattses ended up being one of the largest holders of almost all their protocols in which they have, which could be threatening to them, but they didn't cry like a bunch of whiny babies. Well, what does that have anything to do with the community? I ask. Well, I don't ask. I haven't asked him that. I haven't said anything about it, honestly. It just gets down this rabbit hole of like trying to talk to a drunk lady at this point. You're just kind of like, what? Like, what the fuck does any of that have to do with anything, bro? Like, really, honestly. Like the participation of the OA coming in and everyone being all like, oh, it's fucking, bad. And then you realize that it was facilitating an opportunity for liquidity to be thick enough at the time to be able to actually move your fucking assets around in the first place. Then you'd think that maybe that type of thing was going on with your community as well. But yet you're not actually telling people the reality of what's going on. You're just putting a light over here on this other thing to try to distract people again. And why would you have so many roundabout tactics to try to get people from our community to come over to yours to give away their shiny object to you in the first place if it's so fucking good? Because I'm sorry, but like that isn't necessarily like good tactics if it requires those types of tactics to get them involved in your product, them being just consumers, right? Like I get what they're doing there, and I can't disagree. I mean, they have to do something, so I can't be like shitting on their whole parade, but at least I'm just establishing like at least their narratives for those people who want to be more serious about what's going on here, to see that the narratives are just as much bullshit as anything else. And still, if anything, just make your decisions based off of what you know gives you actual availability of options and an advantage in some sort of way. And then just make your call, right? That's it. Don't be swayed by the outside opinions of what seems to be manipulated commentary, right? Because like I've got some commentary that would suggest, even though they say that they love the Icosa community, that if you, okay, let's see here. Commentary. I don't understand why. Poly Maximus will be farming a bunch of Icosa that won't be staked for 15 years. Seems bullish for Icosa stakers. Commentary from Tanto. You feel that way. You'd feel that way too if you had oatmeal for brains. So don't come telling me about how you feel about the fucking Icosa community when in your community these are the types of comments that you make. That you're saying that if we garner ourselves and have the availability of operating and using these protocols the way that we find an advantage to use them as individuals, as mining equipment, I guess would be the best way to put it, and don't use poly, then we have oatmeal for brains. If we were to say that we don't want this addition because we don't find it incentivizing to us as individuals, then we're retarded. That's your marketing. That's the way you want to play it. Okay. Don't come into this chat talking all nice and trying to get people on your side, and then go in your chat like we're not fucking sitting there watching in the first place how your behavior is in one chat and then to another, because we see there's a definitive line between the two. And then behave that way, and then think that you're going to garner some sort of trust, not from me, because I don't know who the fuck you are, or what you're really trying to do, or what you're really up to. And I can't trust you until I see what you've done. Like, show me what you're about to do with this poly thing. And you can keep playing around the executor could do this and the executor could do that. And I get the reasons why you do that, is because you don't want anybody to know what the executor is going to do. And obviously keep fucking around and telling everybody that everyone else is the executor when we all know that it's him. It has to be him or both of them or whatever.
I mean, if it was ready to benefit the Icosa Idron, it will be transparent to say about all this. And I'm not saying about transparent about coding on YouTube, I don't care about that. But I think he's not going to say it on chat or on YouTube, but we know it's just benefiting the maxi community, It's just, that's it, I mean, we cannot, people, if the people doesn't see it, I mean, I don't know what to say, like where, I mean, that's it, you just benefit the team coin, or I don't know. And yeah, anyway, doesn't matter.
I mean, as you can see right now, they're in the main chat talking about poly in Icosa. It's
the free marketing, they want to bring people, they want to advertise, that's it. But they are not, they're never gonna say like, yeah, it's benefiting Maxi community, but not
What
really Icosa Hadron. That's it.
what's
Well, they
the
can't.
benefit path from Poly into Maximus? Like, how does Poly in any way touch Maximus?
Team staking, their team coin.
Poly is tied into Team.
Yes.
Okay, I didn't realize that.
Yep. A percentage of the proceeds go to team staking. Yeah. Team is the top of their pyramid for all of their other coins that get a percentage into it.
Yeah, Team's been a little disappointing for me. I was pretty heavy in Maximus at the beginning.
Yeah, they're going to try to find other things to be able to suck money out of other projects into team. So it will maybe one day be worthwhile.
Be worth what it originally was, one Maximus at least.
It depends on what they attach to it that's actually successful. If they don't allow for protocols to actually garner its own success, like it just launched or some shit and hasn't even had one fucking event happen, and you're already trying to attach other shit to it, like maybe that's not the best long-term 15-year protocol advantage that you could possibly have to gain something for your top of your pyramid coin, maybe. But I mean, you might, I don't know. I'm not gonna
other than
you're doing. I'm
other
sure
than
that you.
Team, I would say all the pooled tokens that Dipcatcher's made, like just to push back a little bit. When you said earlier, like everybody's giving him their hex. Well, no, they're not. Everybody put hex in the treasury and minted the replacements, and they are either free to hold those or sell them as they wish. I earlier it sounded like you said people are giving up everything to the Maximus pools.
They're shiny objects over Poly. Really, if I wanted to be like explicit about what I meant when I said it and like reiterate what I said when I said it, was giving away their shiny objects. The shiny objects being Hedron, because we were talking about Poly, not the rest of their stuff. Like it
sounded like when you said it that you just to give my take on it. It sounded you said, "Hey, they keep going around and saying like." Basically, the general sentiment that I took from it was, hey, they keep getting people to give them all their stuff. And it's like, well, not exactly. I mean, I could see that with Team, and I can kind of see that with Poly, knowing that it's tied in Team a little bit. But for the most part, Poly is more like Maximus than it was like Team, in my opinion.
I agree. I'm glad that you brought it up to reiterate and rehash the understanding of it, because that wasn't the case. It was explicitly for Poly and the shiny object being Hedron. And I welcome your pushback towards the other things too, like their derivatives and their Maximus and all their other stuff. Locking up all that hex is like a great fucking thing, great, phenomenal, awesome fucking thing that they have going on. Sorry about that. So I'd love
2038 is going to be wild with all the 15-year implications of Maximus and Hedron all happening.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think Team is the only one that pays out like throughout the period also. Or I mean, in its structure, right? Like the other ones pay out at short terms, obviously, because that's the way they work, shorter terms than 15 years. But Team itself pays out throughout the terms individually on its own, doesn't it? So
I think so. I don't know. I got some, but I didn't get staked before the contract locked. So I'm not sure how long I'm locked out for.
Yeah, I think it's 1 year stake terms, and then they're locked. So if you were to stake early, like right after the term ends, and then stake like the next day, then you have to wait for the rest of the year to come to fruition to be able to get involved in the next pool of whatever it would be.
Yeah,
so
I saw that, and I was like, no, I'm not going to give up liquid for my stake starts in a year. No thanks.
Yeah, like I don't know, depending on how like everything develops, like Pulse Chain comes out, Maxi and Hedron, Icosa, Hex, everything gets forked over to there. The implications could change drastically with the other stuff that's involved there, and the founders all knowing each other, maybe, right? Mm-hmm. But like for right now, it doesn't, like it was some big old giant ecosystem going to get built on Ethereum network besides Pulse Chain. Like just imagine Pulse Chain's not going to ever exist, and none of that stuff ever exists at all. But we just have what we have now. Like probably not. You'd end up running a risk of a domino effect, like a bad one happening in 15 years.
basically people will look at it like, oh, there's 4 billion hex coming on the market.
Yeah, I mean, you have a grayscale type of thing happening there.
Mm-hmm.
And a Mount Gox type of thing happening there.
Yeah, I like the pool tokens. Like I've been in pool tokens from the beginning, enthusiastic about it, just for the fact that it's more fee efficient. Like we've already seen the gotcha with in staking from the Ethereum community. So it's nice that instead of thousands of people having to pay gas fees individually, it's one single gas fee for all the redemption at the end.
I like that.
Other than transfer,
Yeah. But in the Icosa community, when it comes to Poly and it comes to Hedron, the relative understanding that Icosa is a derivative of Hedron in the process of burning Hedron through these auctions, that there's not much incentive there to have Poly as an add-on to it, because it's taking away from the game in which and how it was actually developed by having this one tactic as a main tactic. So you could, like, I don't know, figure out all the tactics, deploy all these other shit coins, attachments added to it. So that way you as a community member doesn't even have to participate in the protocols at all. Not even at all. You could just go participate in all these other things where you just gave away your coins to all these other things that are going to go do the protocols for you and then pay you out in the end through some other thing, right? Like,
well, do you think it'd be worse if they were pooling Icosa or pooling to?
Well, we don't have a gas problem with HSIs in the protocol for Icosa, because the buyback function mitigates the availability of worrying about slippage at all, because there is none.
Been like, as a general, like I've gotten the general, just over the last week or two, I've gotten the general sentiment that not everybody in Hedron and Icosa is actually happy with Poly, and just kind of trying to listen in and see what the reasoning is, what you guys are thinking, why you're not liking it.
Well, because if you're staked into the protocols early, then you know that the inflation of the token is going to happen because of these auctions, and the opportunity of being able to get more yield through the buyback function for like Watsa holders, more participation by having those get used in the buyback function, which is going to cause for more Hedron to get burned in the long run, right? Is if any of them get recycled, then the value of them is a magnitude of double, right? Potentially double on the burn rate for Hedron, which means more minted Icosa to those stakers, right? The ones who are minting the coin into existence in the first place. So extracting that value out for that potential is, I think, where the community is like, wait a minute, we just filled the gas tank and you want to come take gas out and then you want to use it to go in this other direction? Like, I don't think that they like that.
Yeah, it's almost like if they had also built Icosa into Poly, maybe it would be more of just a large player. It would be like a synthetic large player built out of lots of small players, because then the Poly contract operators could be free to do exactly what you're talking about, where they recycle the HSIs through over and over again.
Right. Well, I mean, and as soon as, let's say, the SA garners a bunch of their tokens, then they may try to figure out some sort of way to scratch into the darkness and punch into the wind, a way for these communities to give away their tokens for free for another shiny object and a potential to get involved with something else that they might actually believe in, right? It's not even like that bad, like really potentially that bad of a deal. Who knows, right?
Backing up a little bit, you said if the SA decides to put a significant amount of Hedron into Poly, is that what you're saying at the beginning there?
Well, no, like, so when the Watsas were available to mint.
Yeah, I saw all the Maximus go into the
yes,
Hedron deployer. Yeah, that raised my eyebrows a little bit. I've been watching that address for a couple weeks. Noticed that it was sucking Maximus off the market like it was its job, and then a couple days before Icosa launched, I saw it split. It put everything in a new address, which the original address was a staking fucking baller. That thing started out with like, I don't know, 200 million hex or something. It's a beautiful app that address has going on. Anyways, moved all the Maximus to a new address, and then I was like, well, this is interesting, and then dumped everything out of that address into Watson's and Icosa. I was like, huh, didn't see that coming. I actually was worried for a couple of days that we were going to see a huge hit in the Maximus premium because it seemed like that address was responsible for the premium to a large degree. But, you know, I mean, it's taking a hit now that things are gotten more dynamic. But I think this is what you're going to see with Maximus over the 15 years. I think when Hex is going up, Maximus is going to go trend down towards the actual treasury. And then when things are boring and sideways, maybe the Maximus creeps up again.
I mean, that's what they advertised, right? Like that it was this corkscrew discount premium throughout the next 15 years. But the problem is when they showed the visual was that the price chart went straight up into the right. It didn't actually show like negative anything happened during the corkscrew.
Well, sort of. They were talking about, so they were talking about treasury value. So the sloped line was supposed to be the value of the treasury as it accrues, basically IOUs from staking Hex, because the treasury literally doesn't accrue Hex. The treasury doesn't accrue anything. It has T shares. I mean, you could say that it is the closest to accruing actual Hex while being staked. Because everybody else out there, you don't actually accrue the Hex. You just get items from the contract until you either fulfill the stake or you emergency in stake, and then it adds up your penalties.